Ivan, welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So what is your take on our topic of discussion today? Status of libraries.
Well, I think it's a big subject because it lends itself to the fact that as a nation, are we growing? Libraries, I think I've seen the decline of libraries in the country. I haven't seen an increase in our reading culture, which is tragic because if we're not reading, then we're not very competitive against the global market because it's a global market right now, and we can no longer just sit within our local borders and assume that everything will come to us. We have to get out there and be part of that global and international market. So we need to increase our reading culture exponentially, and unless we do that, we can't grow.
So do you take time to visit the library, or have you visited some of our local libraries?
I think the most recent one I ever visited was the one that used to be in town. I mean, it's
no longer there?
What's there, but it's not. I don't think I can actually consider it a library because it's covered in dust and it just doesn't have that sense of being a library. I mean, even I think in Challenge the library used to be there. I haven't seen it. I haven't gone there, but I don't seem to know where it is as well. So we're in bad shape, I think, in terms of libraries. Okay,
now maybe through your interactions, do you think people are actually appreciating the libraries that we have in Zambia?
No, they're not. I think the introduction of the internet has put people in a position where they can actually download information for themselves. So the need to actually go into the library and find a physical book is not as necessary as before. But I think the essence really should be that should we push the issue of a library per se as a physical structure, or should we get people to create their own libraries at home where they're buying books that talk about entrepreneurship, they talk about ballet or cooking or bakery, whatever it is. We need to, I think, encourage a more sense of reading and building up your own personal libraries as opposed to actually going to a specific building or physical structure to read, because even with your iPads or your phones, you can actually download a book from Kindle or Amazon and increase your knowledge.
So where do you think we're losing it, like the reading culture? Is it the internet that has made us, more relaxed and we don't want to read? Because as our previous speaker said, people read to pass exams and then that's it. You don't want to read anything else because you're busy, maybe on the net. But where do you think we're losing it?
Well, I think let me start with your aspect of saying that people just read to pass exams. And I think that's where the problem really is. We need, as a people, to understand that when you expand your mind, you open up your levels of opportunities to different aspects of life that give you the competitive advantage. So when you read different books by Malcolm Gladwell, who talks about the tipping point, or you read books about Obama, or you read books about Steve Jobs, your mind expands and your ability to change your environment also expands as well. So when you just say, I'm reading to pass this exam and then that's it, you limit yourself. That's it. Then you actually limit yourself to that scope of reading that does not give you the advantage going forward. Because when you pass that exam, then what? You've passed it, then you go to maybe university and you read for that, and then what? Then after you've got your degree, I mean, you're in a business, you're meeting, let's say, you meet the top CEO of a Forbes 100 company, and you chat with him. He's going to ask you questions. Oh, what are the fundamentals about your country, and what are the fundamentals about your economic growth and market share? And you won't have a clue because back then all you did was just read about to pass an exam. So expand your mind so when you go to a function or you go to a meeting, when they ask you questions about a business, you can actually explore different aspects about the business. And a lot of people in interviews, when they ask, do you have any questions for us after the interview, they'll say, no questions. When you do that, you actually limit yourself because it's okay, this person does not have a broader scope. But if somebody asks you a question, what are your questions you have about the business? Oh, listen, I noticed you increased your market share by 10%. What caused that increase in your market share? Oh, we did this, over there. But have you considered doing this, that, or you increased your market share by 20%? Then say, oh, this person has read. You see the difference. So when you read, you actually expand your horizons, even for you. I mean, obviously, when given opportunities, if you're sent abroad to cover an event for ZNBC, and you meet with your correspondents from CNN, they'll ask you questions, and you can answer those questions on different dimensions. And they can ask you, oh yeah, we're talking about infant mortality rates in Zambia, which has to be increased. Oh, they say, wow, yeah, there's a donor who wants to actually hook you up because they want to give you money for for funding. You've expanded your horizon. So the culture should be in a sense that we need to understand that when you read, you empower yourself and you empower those around you for greater good and for greater capacity for growth.
Okay. Now, Ivan, you're also an author. So
Yes.
how does it make you feel? Like, what motivates you to write, even though you know that our reading culture in Zambia is not, at its best right now? What makes you write? Do you write in the hope that people are going to start reading, or you just write to tell your stories?
I write because I want to tell my stories, number one, and I presume that someone out there also will read my stories and like them, and propel me to do other works as well. So it's more for the fact that I have this gift that needs to be cultivated and flow. So yeah, so I write because of the fact that I hope that people will read as well.
So maybe an upcoming author out there, they're hearing that, okay, the reading culture in Zambia is not that good, and maybe they can be demotivated. What can you tell them just to encourage them to go on and, keep the writing culture on? Okay,
Zambia, I'll put it this way, Zambia has a population of about 17 million. The world has a population of, I think, is it, what 4 billion? I'm not sure, I forget the number, 5 billion, 4 billion. 17 million, Zambia, 4.5 billion globally. It's an international market, so don't be limited by the fact that Zambians may have a poor culture. You've got South Africa, you've got Namibia, you've got Zimbabwe, you've got Malawi, you've got Ghana, you've got Uganda, you've got Rwanda, you've got Nigeria, you've got Egypt, you've got all these different countries, then you've got the UK, you've got Spain, you've got Italy. You've got a global market at your fingertips. All they have to do is Google your name. They can Google Ivan Mweene and they'll find my books there, what I've written, and maybe they'll buy them, maybe they won't. But the point is, it's a global market. Don't limit yourself to the fact that you have a country that doesn't have a good cultural reading culture. Look at the fact that the global village reads, and be part of that culture as well, and present your works to that. There's a book, I forget the author, is When Things Fall Apart. It's an African writer. Yes. You know, that book was written back in, I think, 19 what?
Oh, it's old.
It's an old book, yeah, but you still know it now. Things fall apart, and the fact that it's on the internet, people can read it. So your footprint may not make an impact today, but it will make an impact tomorrow. So always think about tomorrow and not just today, because today is gone, but tomorrow has the opportunity to change so many dynamics. So I encourage any author to just pen down and start writing. You will have challenges. Don't worry about it. It's normal. It happens. Every single successful person, from Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, to Richard Branson, to all of the great billionaires in the world, they all had challenges. And when you read about their challenges, you understand that you can overcome those challenges and keep going forward. One of the things that Richard Branson, in one of his books that he wrote, he says that always be good to people, because when you're good to people, you never know where they'll take you. And that led to him meeting up with Phil Collins. You know Phil Collins, the musician. Yes, and they had a collaboration, and they both became millionaires because of that one collaboration, because Phil Collins, at the time, was driving cabs in the UK, and he was actually giving Richard Branson a lift to the airport. And he said, oh, I know you, you're Richard Branson, you guy who owns Virgin. Yes, I am. And they chatted, and I said, listen, I created this song, I want you to listen to it. And they listened to the song and said, oh, this guy's fantastic. And that's how the collaboration was going. So when you read, you learn different cultures about people, you learn about how to interact with you, how to engage with different people. So you realize that every single person has a story, every single person can change your life in a dramatic way or a small way, but they can change your life. So you always have to make that effort to engage with people. And I read that in a book. So can you imagine that reading that began to change my aspects. So even with brands, you read that with brands. When you read about brands, how certain brands have grown over the years. Right now, I mean, there's a huge issue about how soft drinks are not very good for you, but despite that, companies are still increasing their budget, advertising budget, because they realize that they have to increase the budget to keep that awareness going. Based on that, you read that, you realize that as a company, you must increase your advertising budget to ensure that people keep their awareness about you, they know about your business on a regular basis. But obviously people think, no, let's reduce our budget. But you realize if you increase your budget, people get to know you, who you are. So those things you read and learn about, and you begin to realize that you can change your dynamics in a fundamentally significant way.
Wow, quite insightful. So maybe what would be your recommendations then? What should be done to these libraries to make them more attractive to members of the public?
Well, definitely they need to engage with the internet more often. I mean, have more e-books available, so that there's the reduction of vandalism. Because I heard you mention about vandalism, people ripping out books. Be more tech savvy. Change the environment completely. Just what can I say? Embrace the 21st century. Realize that, look, the world has changed. It's not about just physical books per se, but engage the public, find out what the public needs, and just do a complete overhaul. I mean, they can actually talk to people like the USIS, or the U.S. Information Service. They have their own libraries as well, the British Council. See what they're actually doing. Basically learn from them and embrace them, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, if they're doing it well, then you just have to take what they're doing and implement it as well in your environment, and see what tweaks you can make as well for that element. But of course, increase the book knowledge. I think also in schools as well, schools need to have their own libraries as well, not just for studying, but let them get to know authors, H.G. Wells, Arthur C. Clarke, all these different writers, the guys that change the minds of people, you know, that can think. So schools should be encouraged to have libraries, book clubs, all this, because we need to change the culture, and it starts at schools, but also at home with parents. Parents need to have time to say, listen, buy your children books to read. Don't just buy them candies and sweets all the time. And buy them a book so they can read the book, even if it's a 5-page book. Let them read. I have a daughter who I always read to at night, and she loves the fact that I read to her at night. And she's getting old now, but as she gets older, she understands the concept of a book and reading it. Now she starts reading her own books as well. So she's transitioning from me reading to her reading by herself. So at a certain stage, she'll just read by herself and not need me to read for her. And even when you're driving on long drives, you find that she's reading a book, or she'll go to flip through. Those are the things you need to encourage our kids, because if we're going to be a nation that has a competitive advantage in a global village, our people need to read. But the point is, as parents, we need to take the step forward, because I think sometimes we feel that we need to give our children this sense of privilege by giving them DSTV and all these big budget entertainment vices. But if you give your child a book to read, you actually give them the power to change the world. Even Ben Carson spent his time. Ben Carson is a neurosurgeon who ran also for president in the U.S. But Ben Carson read this book that he has called Gifted Hands. He talks about how his mother made him read books every week. And that's what made him who he is today. So can you imagine if we have children, we have parents that force their children to read books every week. What book have you read? Do a book report. Let me see what you've read, what you've understood. The mind changes, the mind expands, and we can have an incredible nation, and not just get caught up with texting all the time and Facebook.
True. Now, is it that as parents we're not doing enough? Because we're having cases of vandalism, okay? So people go into libraries, tear books, break windows, and all that stuff. Where are we going wrong? Why are people having that mindset to say, okay, you know what, we don't need a library. We can do without a library?
I think definitely parents are not doing enough. Parents need to teach the children the value of the written word. They have to understand, because you can't, and again the issue is, don't start when the child is 18, because he's already in the rebellious mode. Start young. Start when the child is still crawling, if you like. When the baby is about to sleep, read a book, even if it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the mouse ran up the clock. The child will hear those funny words and say, but every night they're learning the value. You have to start when they're small. Don't start when they're late. Start when they're small. When you have that, when you start small, they grow, they understand, and teach them the value. You have, with parents, we cannot allow our children to, you cannot allow your child to grow up under the influence of Facebook or Twitter or social media. You have to be a physical presence in the child's life, so the child understands the value of reading, the value of what is in your environment. All those things you have to teach them. You have to pass the knowledge on to your child. You cannot assume the child will somehow accidentally assimilate the knowledge. You have to make deliberate efforts, because when the child goes wrong, you'll know, okay, I didn't teach the child about this, I need to teach the child this now. Positive conduct in the office, be assertive, be confident. A child will become confident because you've taught the child to be confident. The child does not become confident accidentally. It's because you've taught the child. If you've taught the child to be confident, he will go into environment and become confident.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ivan. I can tell that you're well read.
I try. Thank you.
From the information that you've given us. But thank you so much for coming to Morning Live.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.